America's best days are yet to come. That's because conservatives like you know and live the values our great country was built on. The Heritage Foundation exists to make sure your voice is heard in the D.C. swamp each day, shining the light on a bright future. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values and won't give up the fight because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Here, our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. President wants to change the name of the Kennedy Center to the Trump Kennedy Center. The board voted to do that. I object to this. I think it should be called the Trump Reagan Center. Don't you, Mr. Producer? No offense. No offense. No offense. This thing with the Somali community in Minnesota is beyond belief now. The U.S. Attorney has announced new indictments. Half of more of the $18 billion paid out by Medicaid in Minnesota may be fraudulent, says the U.S. Attorney. You know how hard it must be to steal over $9 billion? I mean, this is sick. About half or more of the roughly $18 billion in claims paid out by Medicaid to Minnesota-run programs may have been fraudulent. And at least 14 programs were likely exploited, a federal prosecutor said today. In October, state officials announced that a third party will audit 14 Medicaid services deemed to be high risk for fraud in the state. According to Thompson, and that is the U.S. Attorney, I take it, first assistant U.S. Attorney. Those 14 programs have cost the state $18 billion since 2018. $18 billion. First assistant U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson said it's unclear just how much of that money is fraudulent, but said so far too much. On order of half or more, but we'll see. Half or more of the $18 billion. Thompson said the scale of fraud in Minnesota outpaces that of other states and puts services at risk for people who really need them. I'm not seeing a lot of outrage by the Democrats. All this money is stolen, and that means not only are taxpayers ripped off, but people for whom the money was intended don't see it, like autistic kids, like people who are hungry. While prosecutors typically see fraud manifest as providers overbilling, Thompson said during a news conference in Minneapolis that companies have been created to provide zero services while pocketing federal funds for international travel, luxury vehicles, and lavish lifestyles. The magnitude cannot be overstated, said the first assistant U.S. Attorney. What we see in Minnesota is not a handful of bad actors committing crimes. It's staggering. Industrial scale fraud. Don't you dare criticize the Somali community. Don't you dare. The investigators' new findings may bolster President Trump in his claims that Minnesota is a hub of fraudulent money laundering activity under Governor Tim Walz, the Democrats' vice presidential nominee last year. Trump has capitalized on the fraud, this is them writing, CBS, to target Somali diaspora in Minnesota, calling them garbage and saying he doesn't want immigrants from the East African country in the U.S. Folks, the president puts it that way, but the truth is that used to be our policy. That is, the vetting of people who want to come into the country, they have to be from communities, from provinces, from countries where the people are susceptible to assimilation. The people are self-sufficient. The people won't go on welfare, and on and on and on. There used to be a long list of requirements. But, of course, those have been, for the most part, prior to Trump, eliminated. More than 90% of the people charged in the major fraud cases announced before today were of Somali descent, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota. Yeah, I'd say there's a problem in that community. 5 new defendants have been charged in connection with a Minnesota Housing Services fraud, Thompson said. 2 of them pocketed $750,000 instead of helping Medicaid recipients find stable housing. Prosecutors allege they used the proceeds to travel to international destinations, including London, Istanbul, and Dubai. Ah, Dubai. I wonder if they bought homes near Catarleson. One defendant submitted $1.4 million in fraudulent claims using some of the funds to purchase cryptocurrency. Federal officials say he fled the country after receiving a subpoena. I'm sure he's innocent. The 5 charged include 2 Philadelphia residents, figures, who've been accused of fraud tourism as they registered as Minnesota providers, Thompson said, adding that for them the scheme was easy money. For everybody it was easy money. You can't just spend over $9 billion. He said Minnesota has become a magnet for fraud, so much so that we have developed a fraud tourism industry. People coming to our state purely to exploit and defraud its programs. It's deeply unsettling reality that all Minnesotans should understand. Now, what we should understand is you have a governor who is a disgusting nobody, a loser of the highest magnitude. You have a community there of 80,000 illegal aliens and some legal, Somalians, who are robbing the nation blind. And for reasons we've explained in the past, not my experience, but others, that's the nature, apparently, of the culture, and that's why Somalia does not have a functioning society, a functioning government. The 2 men, Anthony Waddle Jefferson and Lester Brown, were accused of siphoning millions from federally funded programs administered by Minnesota officials that were meant to help the disabled and those suffering from addiction. All these people should go to prison for life. For life. They allegedly fleeced the housing program in Minnesota despite living on the other side of the country and having no networking or connections to Minnesota or its communities. So you have travel fraud. You have fraud taking place in Minnesota from people living in other states who don't even set foot in Minnesota. And, of course, you have fraud in Minnesota. Now, the 8 others charged in September for their alleged roles in the scheme to defraud Minnesota Housing Stability Services Program. Prosecutors also named a new defendant. Asked who's to blame, the prosecutor said the state has not done a good job of mining these programs. Oh, you think? No, they haven't done a good job at all. I'm still waiting to hear from the Democrats. Still waiting to hear from Ilhan Omar. Still waiting to hear. But we won't. No. These are constituents. These are voters, Mr. Producer. Why would we hear from them? I think that's a fair question. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. You know, there's a lot of talk about how the Republicans are going to be blown out in the midterms, and they might be. It's kind of early to know one way or the other. It's possible. We've talked about that. We've talked about a number of reasons. I think this economy is going to take off next year, first or second quarter, the way it did under Reagan, but we'll see. Trump has done many things. He's put them in place, and it takes time for them to take place, like the tax cuts really haven't kicked in until, next year. But the Democrats have their own problem. Why? Because they're nuts, that's why. Absolutely, totally screwed up. Harry Enton on CNN today, he's their data expert analyst on Democrats' polling in the minds of the American people. Cut one, Mr. Producer, go.
Yeah, I mean, Democrats in the minds of the American public are lower than the Dead Sea. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look. The net approval rating for Democrats in Congress, you said it, Kate Baldwin, the lowest ever. Look at this. Overall, they are 55 points underwater. Their approval rating is south of 20%. It's even worse when you look at independents. Look at this. Negative 61 points. That means that their approval rating is 61 points lower than their disapproval rating. Quinnipiac has been polling this question for the better part of the 21st century. They have never found Democrats, at least those in Congress, in worse shape than they are right now.
That's independents and overall, but what about Democrats on Democrats?
Yeah, what about Democrats on Democrats? So part of the reason overall is so low is independents are driving it low. But that's not the only reason it's so low. What about Democrats on Democrats? Democrats' net approval rating of congressional Democrats. I want you to keep in mind, they had never rated Democrats negatively until this year. And right now, what are we talking about? We're talking about a net approval rating from Democrats. This is Democrats on Democrats. Their approval rating is actually lower than the disapproval rating, and that is quite the drop from October. I think during the shutdown, there was a bit of a boost for Democrats, right? There was a rallying around the flag effect going on, but Democrats did not like how that shutdown turned out. They have returned against Democrats in Congress, and you mentioned Dan Goldman in that intro. One of the reasons that Dan Goldman is in trouble right now in a potential primary against Brad Ladner is because at this point, the Democratic base is so upset with Democrats. So even if Democrats take back Congress, don't be surprised if Dan Goldman ain't there because of numbers like this.
Now, Goldman's a lunatic, of course, but the guy he's running against, a lunatic times 10. So they're going to become even more extremist, even more radical. Meanwhile, what's going on with inflation? What's going on with inflation? Harvard professor Ken Rogoff on the Constipated News Network today. Cut 4, go.
I mean, I was surprised. It was a better number than anyone was expecting. Look, inflation's been very high. It's stayed high. It has not been coming down. But, people were expecting it to be above 3%. It was well below 3%. I mean, I think the president will take this as good news. The investors will think that interest rates will get cut more. So, it was a positive news. There's no other way to spin it.
No, thank you, Professor. So, inflation is down even more, and there's no other way to spin it, America. The economy's going to get there. You'll see. And then you know what else you're going to see? You're going to see these gutless, quizzling members of Congress, some of whom are obviously Republicans, all of a sudden be cheerleading Trump again. You'll see the neo-fascists. They're not sure what to do. Maybe they'll start cheering Trump again. Marjorie Trader Green, she will be a footnote to a footnote and a footnote, not to history, but in some comic book. This economy is going to pick up. It may go a little bit south, a little bit more south, but then it's going to come north. That's what economic growth does, and Trump has put in place so many measures to promote economic growth in so many parts of the economy, whether it's natural resources like oil and gas and lumber and mining and so forth, food, where he's put in place, again, so many growth policies, even fisheries, commercial fisheries. He's done the same thing. He's pulled the Biden regulations off that business, that industry. He's trying to force other countries that are purposely blockading economically our farmers through tariffs to accept goods from our farmers, products from our farmers. And he's doing everything a president can possibly do to turn on the economic spigot. And all of this kicks in next year in a more significant way. You're seeing little dribs and drabs of it, actually more than that. I mean, gasoline prices are down. That's a big deal. It takes time for these things to resonate through a massive economy, and that's what we have, a massive, diverse economy. I've seen this throughout my life. But again, he's gone with the Reagan tax cuts. His regulatory cuts are more massive than any president that I can remember. He's ditched this whole climate change BS, and he's done a lot of things that are all pro-growth oriented. And so he's going to get pro-growth. He's going to get it. Let's hope it's in time for the midterms, for sure. Time will tell. Then we have John Berman to Representative Gregory Meeks on CNN today. If the economy's so bad for Trump, why don't voters trust you more? Cut 5, go.
46% say Republicans are better at handling the economy than Democrats. So, if the policies are as bad as you say they are, why is it that voters still say they prefer Republicans on this?
Well, I think that if you look at those same numbers, you see that Donald Trump is at an all-time low in regards to the economy. I think that the last poll that I saw a day ago was he's down to 36%.
Yeah, it's bad.
Economy,
if that's true, why don't they trust you more? If it's so bad for him, why don't they trust you more for the economy, you being Democrats?
Well, I think that they see who's fighting for health care to try to make sure.
All right, slow down. He can't answer it because for him to answer, he would have to condemn their policies. They're not fighting for health care. They're fighting for Obamacare, which is a financial disaster, which is a medical disaster, which is unsustainable. Now imagine this. You have a government-run healthcare program that's unsustainable and provides poor service. Massive subsidies, and yet your premiums are still going through the roof. Every Democrat in Congress then voted for it. Every Republican in Congress then voted against it. And the Democrat answer is don't reform it, don't change it, subsidize it, and then subsidize it some more. Subsidize a failing government-run. This is why you have what's going on in Minnesota. Massive fraud with the Somalis. And you got massive fraud with the Democrats, period. This is why you have these horrendous, mismanagement of funds and loss of funds. We're coming upon the 250th birthday of the United States, and it has me thinking, what will America look like 250 years from now? My friends at the Heritage Foundation want to know what you think. What policies should America prioritize? What principles should carry us into the decades ahead? As America enters a new golden age, Heritage recognizes that this is the time to take stock and to be intentional about how we shape the future of America. And they can't do it without your input. So please go to heritage.org/LEVIN and let them know what you think is important. Without patriots like you stepping up and speaking up for what you believe in, America as we know it can't survive for another 250 years. Please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN. Take the survey on America's future. future. This survey takes less than 10 minutes to complete, but it is critical for making sure that the America we pass on to future generations is an America we're proud of. Go to heritage.org/Levin today. That's heritage.org/Levin. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Mark Levin, America's tyranny hunter. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
The multicultural terrorist threat inside Europe. The exported war nobody wants to name by Pierre Rahab. Gatestone Institute, International Policy Council, is one of the best of all the institutes. It just is. It's fantastic. Really, really good work. Investigative and research writing. It's just terrific. And so let's go through some of this. It's important. And by the way, Brown University, if they have a press event, we will go there live. They're looking at a possible link between Brown University and the murder of the MIT nuclear expert. And they're 50 miles apart. So something's going on here that's bigger than was once assumed. I have my own thoughts, but I'm not going to voice them because they're not based on facts, so we'll see. Anyway, back to this. Peaceful protesters certainly exist, he writes, but in many instances, the same marchers who cry from the river to the sea also provide cover, logistics, and recruitment spaces for operatives who work closely with Hamas or other terrorist organizations. This is a big deal. You know why, America? Because it's happening here, in our country. A report from the University of Indiana shows how a transnational network of NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and campus groups spread anti-Semitic and pro-Hamas narratives, coordinated across borders and amplified by social media. I want you to remember that 9/11 was a direct attack on the heart of the United States, on the biggest buildings in our biggest city, on the Pentagon. And that other plane was headed for Congress, they think. So this is a big deal. Let's see, let's go on. The message is simple. Israel's colonial, Jews are settlers, and violence against them is resistance. And, of course, that means we, the people in the United States. Europe rallies have repeatedly featured Hamas flags, praise for the October 7 attackers, and calls to repeat the massacre, all under the label of human rights. Law enforcement sees the problems more clearly than politicians. The same European Union reports that speak delicately of violent extremism in public also describe behind closed doors how online propaganda, diaspora networks, and Middle Eastern conflicts interact to create hybrid terrorist ecosystems in Europe. Even so, at the political level, Europe still refuses to name the ideology, that is, the ideological enemy, an Islamist project that openly seeks the eradication of Israel, spills over to advocate eliminating the United States and the West. Quote, the one Jewish state is the first to suffer, notes Jerusalem Post reporter Liat Collins. But the nearly 50 million Muslim majority countries in the nominally Christian world are all in the line of fire. European governments rush to recognize a Palestinian state even as Hamas thanks them for rewarding its resistance, quote unquote. This same cognitive dissonance runs through the European Union institutions that condemn terrorism in the abstract while lavishly funding non-governmental organizations that glorify its perpetrators. Europe's retreat into denying intangible threats, staring them in the face, unfortunately, has extremely tangible results. Studies of Hamas funding stress that social and religious front organizations are integral to the movement's terrorist attacks. They launder money, recruit sympathizers, and create safe spaces where support for terrorism can flourish under a humanitarian cover. This is all Qatar. Not by itself, but this is all Qatar does. And so when you have sycophants like Qatarlson and people like him, and he's not alone. You got Wall Street guys, other businesses. You have athletes and sporting events. You've got entertainers from Hollywood. You have CNN. You've got others. in the media. When Germany bans Samadun, or a small local front group, non-governmental organizations and academics denounce the act as repression of civil society. And here, we hear people denounce it as attacking free speech, you know. When Belgium moves against a man praising the October 7 massacre, activist networks cry that solidarity is being criminalized. In this narrative, it's always the state, never the terrorist infrastructure, that is on trial. The war has been exported from Gaza to Europe, has three pillars: money, indoctrination, and operational cells. All three are embedded in structures that call themselves Palestinian Solidarity, or human rights organizations. As long as European governments accept this masquerade, the continent will remain both a financial base and potential battlefield for Hamas and its Qatari, Turkish, and Iranian sponsors. What would a serious policy look like? No more American or European funding, period, for organizations that celebrate terrorist martyrs and teach children to hate Jews, hate Christians, or any other racial or religious group. When demonstrators chant globalize the intifada, they're not calling for peace. They're calling for the expansion of a global jihadist war. Terrorism. Finally, Europeans must abandon the illusion that the Palestinian cause, quote unquote, is a harmless protest, disconnected from terrorism. Hamas itself, backed by Qatar, Turkey, and Iran, has explained over and over that Europe is part of their battlefield. The only question is whether European leaders will listen to their own police and intelligence services, as Israel's Mossad, or whether they will continue pretending that a war raging against them has no name and does not exist. When Israel's Mossad intelligence agency publicly revealed in November 2025 that it had helped European countries expose a Hamas terrorist infrastructure, quote, in the heart of Europe, unquote, including weapons caches and plans to hit Jewish and Israeli targets, it simply confirmed that intelligence professionals have warned since October 7, 2023. The war in the Gaza Strip is not local. It has been exported operationally to European soil, and I would add to American soil. As early as December 2023, German, Dutch, and Danish authorities had already arrested Hamas operatives accused of preparing attacks on Jewish institutions in several European countries. Prosecutors described long-standing members of Hamas directed to stockpile weapons in Berlin. Since then, intel and security reports have spoken of a, quote, realistic possibility, unquote, that the Hamas-Israel war will embolden networks across Western Europe to move from propaganda to mass casualty attacks. Folks, this is going to happen. It's going to happen here. It's going to happen in the United States. We have laxed immigration for way too long. We have the Democrat Party that gives cover to these operations. We have this Marxist Islamist alliance that really is at the heart now of the Democrat Party. And we also have our outliers, podcasters, influencers, who are in the back pocket of Qatar, if not financially, otherwise, trashing our own history, trashing the West, trashing the good guys in World War II. That would be us. Attacking Christians, attacking Jews in this country. Like Carlson and his ilk. Europol's 2025 terrorism situation and trend report openly acknowledged the Gaza conflict has reshaped the threat picture in the European Union. The forward warns that wars beyond Europe's border, explicitly including Gaza, fuel radicalization, propaganda, and operational planning within European states. In parallel, news outlets report that since 2023, European authorities have quietly disrupted several plots linked to Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran. Behind these plots lies an entrenched Hamas infrastructure in Europe that long predates 2023. A detailed study from George Washington University describes how Hamas built extensive fundraising and logistical networks in Western countries using charities, NGOs, often European funded, and business fronts, whose names and legal entities are constantly changed to stay ahead of authorities. And these same countries, the study's authors warned, are the natural incubator for future terrorist operations in the West. In 2024, the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy summarized new research by ELNet that identified 30 Hamas-linked groups and figures active in the UK, Germany, Italy, Belgium, and Netherlands. These groups include, quote, civil society, unquote, associations, aid organizations, and lobbying platforms that propagate Hamas narratives while maintaining close personal ties with known extremists. They operate with relative freedom despite Hamas being officially designated as a terrorist organization by both the EU and individual European countries. You know, ladies and gentlemen, one thing I'm proud of what we do here is we are focused like a laser. World War III is already underway. No, it's not because of Israel. It's not because of Ukraine. It's not because of Trump with Venezuela. World War III, the Islamist war against the West. First battle with Israel. Battles breaking open in Europe. Battles will break open in the United States. I mark my words. I know what I'm talking about. They are here. They are plotting. You're in the right place at the right time in American history, and you have been. Germany, to its credit, has gone further to confront this problem than most. Berlin has not only banned Hamas on the international network Samadan, but has also started outlawing local solidarity groups whose activities glorify terrorism and promote anti-Semitic agitation. You know, I say over and over again, if you hate Israel, you hate America. If you hate America, you hate Israel. It's for one basic reason: shared values and belief systems. Israel is a Jewish state. America is essentially a Christian country, Judeo-Christian belief systems. Even in Germany, however, every ban on one structure appears followed by the birth of another. So this is highly organized and sophisticated. Hamas also invests heavily in indoctrination, particularly among students. A report from the University of Nevada shows how transnational network of NGOs and campus groups spread anti-Semitic pro-Hamas narratives, coordinated across borders, amplified by social media. Excuse me. The message is simple. Israel's colonial, Jews are settlers, and violence against them is resistance. They say the same thing about the United States. Same thing. And you can see it on college campuses in Europe. You see it on college campuses in the United States of America. You see Qatar. Why would Qatar be pouring tens of billions of dollars into our educational system? For this reason. That's why. And I'm waiting for Congress, the Republican Congress, to cut off all foreign money coming into our colleges and universities. But we can't even get a committee of Republicans to vote that the Muslim Brotherhood, the mothership of the terrorists, should be designated as a terrorist organization for all purposes and in every part of the planet. Ted Cruz and Republicans in the Senate now are trying to fix that and lead the charge, but we'll see how far that goes with their colleagues. Meanwhile, Europe's Jewish communities live under siege. Synagogues require fortress-style protection. Jewish schools resemble military bases. Israeli tourists are warned by their own government to avoid displaying any visible sign of Jewish or Israeli identity. The dramatic rise in anti-Semitic incidents across Europe and America since October 7 can be directly linked to pro-Hamas agitation, even when officials pretend the hatred has nothing to do with imported Middle Eastern conflicts. The war that has been exported from Gaza to Europe has three pillars: money, indoctrination, and operational cells. All three are embedded in structures that call themselves Palestinian solidarity. And that's where we are. Pierre Rehov, law degree from Paris, French reporter, documentary filmmaker, author of 6 novels. He has produced and directed 17 documentaries, many photographed at high risk in Middle Eastern war zones, focusing on terrorism, media bias, and the persecution of Christians. His latest documentary, Pogroms, highlights the context of Asian Jew hatred within Muslim civilization, is the main force behind the October 7 massacre. I hope the world is listening. I hope people are listening. You, Mr. and Mrs. America. I know what I'm doing. I know why I'm using these sources and conveying this information to you. It is here. It is a threat. It's going to hit us. And it's going to be horrific. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. Here's the update from ABC News. Law enforcement officials have identified a possible suspect in connection with the mass shooting at Brown University and have issued a warrant for the individual's arrest. Now, that is not a search warrant. That's a warrant for their arrest, and they got it from a judge, so they're pretty sure. This comes after multiple sources briefed on the investigation told ABC News that the Brown shooting and the murder of an MIT professor in Brookline, Massachusetts may be linked. Now, look, I don't know how they're linked. I don't know how they may be linked. But the MIT professor who was murdered was Jewish and one of the top nuclear experts, not just in the country, but the world. The room at Brown in which this suspect murdered those two wonderful students and shot 9 others. First of all, one of those students, a young lady, was the vice president of the College Republicans. But the professor on campus is well known. She's Jewish, and she's taught a class in Israel as well. And she teaches Middle Eastern policy. Now, I don't know if that's how they're linked or not. I don't know if they're linked or not, but this is the information that ABC News and virtually every other news organization is putting out now, that they think they're linked. They were 50 miles apart. We shall see. It's just a matter of time. They're going to get their man. We'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Have I shared with you, Mr. Producer, what I think's going on here with Brown and the MIT professor and everything? Shut my microphone off for a second. I'm back on the air. Now, you'll be able to tell America if I'm right or wrong, okay? I'm not going to tell anybody what I said, but I've been thinking this now for 2 days. And you folks will remember the other day when I said it's very strange indeed that you have this murder in this classroom in Brown of a Jewish professor who's well known on the campus, who has also taught at a university in Tel Aviv, I believe, and who's teaching Judaic studies, among other things, Middle East studies. And in that classroom, 2 people are murdered, including the one young lady who was the vice president of the college Republicans, and one of her classmates said after her murder that she was actually a very kind person who was trying to bring different people together. Then you have this apparently world-renowned nuclear expert who's an MIT professor, and he's murdered not that long after, 50 miles away, obviously outside of Boston, in the lobby area of the condominium where he lives, and the family lives in a condominium on the first floor. Now, other information that's sort of squeezing out of this is the police have found the suspect's abandoned car. They know who they're looking for. They have an arrest warrant, not a search warrant, an arrest warrant. That's even more important because they provided enough information to a court that there's probable cause that this man committed these acts, or at least one of them. And the investigation is now spread to New Hampshire. So you have a multi-state, statewide, in each state, investigation taking place. And they're going to get this guy. And there may be more than one, but certainly there's one. They're going to get this guy. It's just a matter of time. And apparently they were supposed to have a press conference at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, which they canceled because they have an active situation. And as some have pointed out, Paul Morrow at Fox is spectacular, in my opinion. That many of the people who would be present at that press conference are actually operationally in charge of what's taking place. So when things are moving and things are taking place, they obviously need to take care of the operations more than respond to press questions. That's where we are, as best as I can tell right now. But I have my thoughts about this. We shall see. When I read something to you like I did in the last hour from Gatestone about the spread of Hamas, the spread of Islamism, these things that are going on in the Middle East, in Europe, in the United States, I do it for a reason. I do it for a reason. And here's what I also know, and I believe our affiliates and program directors know. I believe Sirius Satellite knows. I believe all of our platforms know. You're a smart audience. You want a smart radio program. You don't want podcasting where the F-bombs are dropped every other day, where there's gossip, where there's conspiracy nuts, where history's rewritten, where they talk about Hitler in a friendly way and all the rest of it. You don't want to hear any of this. You're sick of it, and I am too. But I have to call it out. I have to magnify it so you, normal Americans, Mr. and Mrs. America, realize what's going on out there and how some people are trying desperately to corrupt the minds of young people with all kinds of trash. These are your children and grandchildren. That's who they are. It's very important that we address these things because they're taking place under the radar. And again, I'm going to have an announcement next month when I come back to fill you folks in on some things that I will be doing. I think it's important. Sort of an expansion of some of the things that I've been doing. And I think it's very problematic that you have this Islamist, Marxist Islamist who's now going to be running the city of New York. I think the city of New York, in addition to everything else that's been discussed, is going to be a hotbed for terrorists. And I'm not saying he's affirmatively seeking to create that. I'm telling you that's what it's going to be. The police won't be able to do some of the things they need to do. Prosecutors there already. Soros prosecutors aren't doing what they need to do. The whole vetting process is going to be eliminated of any sort for any programs. And so my fear is you're going to see a tremendous increase in a dangerous environment in New York City. You're going to see it for Jews, particularly Orthodox Jews who wear what they wear and grow their hair as they grow and wear the hats that they grow that they wear. I worry about that. And I think you're going to see more of this. And I think you're going to see more of it nationwide without question. Now, this MIT nuclear researcher was assassinated in his home. Reports have said, I haven't seen an official statement from the Israeli government, that the Israelis think that Iran may have been behind it, or an Iran operative taking out a nuclear expert of the United States. That suggests to me, whether true or not, that this gentleman was very important in our own nuclear program. Again, I'm just reading the tea leaves. It's a theory. Just a theory. And Iran is back building up its nuclear program, as well as building enormous numbers of ballistic missiles. Mark wanted regime change. Yes, I did. I don't want forever wars. But I want you to keep in mind, Turkey, Qatar are behind much of the terrorism in the world. Iran, which is allied with Qatar but not Turkey. Qatar is also aligned with Turkey. Qatar is really aligned with all terror centers in the world. In fact, Qatar is so bad, Saudi Arabia wants nothing to do with them. What do you think of that, Rich? Pretty amazing. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
As a consumer, you can carry the success or failure of businesses in the palm of your hand. Their success can depend on your decision to spend money with them or their competitor. Well, my friends at Pure Talk would like to say thank you from the bottom of their hearts for choosing Pure Talk for your wireless needs. Because of you, they've had a record-breaking year. Because of your generosity through their Roundup for Charity program, they've been able to donate over $500,000 to America's Warrior Partnership, who stands on the front lines of helping to prevent veteran suicide. Your patronage has allowed Pure Talk to donate 1,000 hand-sewed Made in America flags to your fellow veterans. And when you choose Pure Talk as your wireless provider, you help Pure Talk support American jobs right here in our country. Like I said, as a consumer, you have the power to make or break companies. And with the money the big wireless guys throw around on advertising, you're inundated with offers everywhere you look. So from everyone in the Pure Talk family, thank you for your trust, and God bless you. Tracking this, there is a large police presence, I'm reading online here, in Salem, New Hampshire. Just stick with me. And let's see. Boston 25 reporter Bob Ward cited law enforcement sources. The search for the suspect in the Brown University mass shooting and the Brookline murder is centered on Salem, New Hampshire. Officials yet to make a statement, of course. Flight radar maps showed at least 3 helicopters circling over the Woodham-Salem area near the Merrimack River. Reports further cited police scanners to add that officers are looking for a Nissan Sentra. The information is not verified. Meanwhile, several news publications reported that investigators are examining the possible connection between last weekend's deadly shooting at Brown and the killing of the MIT professor 2 days later near Boston. The suspect has been identified according to reports. Stick with me. I'm looking at these up-to-date, on-the-scene reports. This is what I do. It's very important. Let's see here. Let's see. Just stick with me. All right. That's all they have right now. But there's a lot of activity. They have found the abandoned vehicle of the suspect. A lot of activity in Salem. I read elsewhere that it's activity near a warehouse, so you have the helicopters and you have a very significant police presence in that area. So that's the up-to-date, and I'm going to keep my eyes on this, and I will update you as events warrant. I'm not going to repeat the same thing again and again, but as events warrant, I will inform you about what's taking place here. Let me check one other place that I go to for good information. You know, it's interesting, during the Boston Marathon murders, somehow, Mr. Producer, we were listening in on the police scanner, weren't we? And we were doing that publicly because we knew that the killers were not listening in on the police scanner or radio. They were on the run. And we were giving block by block coverage and so forth. We don't have access to that now, of course. But, and we would never do it in a way that would harm the pursuit. And it didn't harm the pursuit. I feel like we should have gotten a Pulitzer Prize for that, Rich. I mean, that'll never happen again. That'll never happen on radio again. But they left their scanner on. And it was Guns who tapped into it. And he would provide me with the constant update, and I would report it on radio without giving locations, of course. And it was crazy, but it was also very important and very, very interesting. All right, let me check one other thing here, if I might. This is live radio. This is what we do. That's why it's best to be live and not delayed or anything of the sort, because we know what we're doing here. Hold on one second. Looking here. Incoming. Let's see. No, it's just more reports of significant police activity in Salem, New Hampshire. Well, if you're living in Salem, New Hampshire, you better lock your door. That's for sure. All your doors and your windows. And we're heard in Salem, New Hampshire. We're heard everywhere. And let me say this to the shooter. You're going to get caught. Not that you're listening to my show, but you're going to get caught. So you might as well surrender and deal with it. Because otherwise you might get popped. So they know who they're looking for. They have the car. They're centered in Salem, New Hampshire right now. Heavy, heavy police presence, including helicopters, and I guess they have their SWAT teams there. I'm just guessing. They certainly would. And the reporting is that the murder of the 2 students and the shooting of 9 others at Brown University is linked to the murder of this nuclear expert from MIT. Now, this guy was so big and so good that he had 250 researchers reporting to him, Mr. Producer. 250. He's 47 years old with a wife and a son, I believe. So that's a big deal. And the professor, as I've explained before, at Brown, that specific class that was targeted, was Jewish, is Jewish, taught classes in Israel. Her class at Brown was Judaic studies, among other things, in the Middle East. And 11 students shot, 2 murdered, and 1 is a young lady who was the vice president of the college Republicans, who, according to a classmate, was known for being very conciliatory and trying to work with other students, to try and can't we all get along type situations. That's all we know right now. They did find live rounds in the classroom, so that helped with the DNA. I suspect that was a key thing. There's a lot of things to be learned from this. First of all, these colleges and universities are pathetic. most of them don't have enough cameras, if any cameras, on campus. Well, as you know, just by watching TV shows, police shows, those cameras are essential. They're crucial. And for the safety of the students, you'd think they'd have them, but you have these quote-unquote human rights groups. In the case of Brown a few months earlier, 34 of them wrote a letter to the president of that university complaining about any of the cameras and so forth. So what happened? Did she remove them? I don't know. But the lunatic left causes a lot of harm, a lot of violence, a lot of death in its various forms and so forth. There was supposed to be a press conference at 4 p.m. They canceled it for obvious reasons, and now that's, 3.5 hours ago? So they're on this guy. They're going to get this guy, or guys, and we will find out if it was some kind of network. Now, if they say it's a lone gunman, see, that doesn't fly anymore, depending on who it is and what they are. Because there are ideologies out there that push a murderous agenda, and maybe one person will do it, or two or three. Lone gunmen, we don't see a network. That's the network. The ideology, the pushing of the ideology, and the spending of the money. And I've been calling on Congress now, I don't know how long. We need to cut off foreign money coming into our colleges and universities. We need to track foreign money coming into our country. You know, people talk about our money going to other countries. I am actually more worried about foreign money coming into our country to influence our young people, to create, terrorist acts, criminal, unlawful acts. That's what I'm worried about. What's happening here in America. But maybe I'm just one of a few in that regard. I'm looking again. I don't see anything else. I'm telling you, as soon as something happens, something will happen. Maybe not on my watch, but they're going to happen. Also, armed cops swoop in on men heading to Bondi Beach over fears they planned violent acts days after the terrorist act there. The enemy is on the move. The enemy's on the move. These jihadi Islamists are the enemy. Not because I say so, because they say so. And there's simply no question about this. We'll be right back. As a consumer, you can carry the success or failure of businesses in the palm of your hand. Their success can depend on your decision to spend money with them or their competitor. Well, my friends at Pure Talk would like to say thank you from the bottom of their hearts for choosing Pure Talk for your wireless needs. Because of you, they've had a record-breaking year. Because of your generosity through their Roundup for Charity program, they've been able to donate over $500,000 to America's Warrior Partnership, who stands on the front lines of helping to prevent veteran suicide. Your patronage has allowed Pure Talk to donate 1,000 hand-sewed Made in America flags to your fellow veterans. And when you choose Pure Talk as your wireless provider, you help Pure Talk support American jobs right here in our country. Like I said, as a consumer, you have the power to make or break companies. And with the money the big wireless guys throw around on advertising, you're inundated with offers everywhere you look. So from everyone in the Pure Talk family, thank you for your trust, and God bless you.
Mark Levin, America's real influencer. Dial in 877-381-3811.
All right, here's another update. It's the best I've got. It comes from, let me give you this, Boston 25 News, which is on the spot. They've learned that there's law enforcement activity, of course, that you know. A Boston 25 News photojournalist saw FBI agents, Providence Police, and members of state police, that's New Hampshire State Police, surrounding a location in Salem, New Hampshire, shortly before 7 p.m. They're not going to show the images. It's believed it's some kind of a warehouse. I'm just looking. They were, let's see. It's centered around a vehicle of a similar make and model that was allegedly seen in the area of the MIT professor's murder in Brookline. The police activity is ongoing as they search for the suspected shooter. I suspect, as I read here, Maybe, I don't know. But at this point, I suspect they know exactly where this known shooter is because they have an arrest warrant. And I'm just guessing they're trying to get him out of wherever he is, Mr. Producer, wouldn't you? That's probably what's going on. I don't want to speculate, but it's just a matter of logic. So we will see. Again, I will stay focused on this. And Turning Point USA, I know this is all over Fox. Their big annual event the next few days. Opening day is today. Erica Kirk is a real class act. Is giving the opening speech. There'll be a whole mix of people there. Carlson, I happen to think it's a mistake that he's here, to be perfectly honest with you. It's not a matter of hearing all views. All views aren't worth hearing, particularly if your views are neo-fascist, neo-Nazi, in my view. That's what he is. Just my opinion. Qatar is really another issue. And I go on and on and on about this guy, but I'm not going to. You've heard me before. You got Bannon there. Bannon's a crook. He's a confessed crook. I just don't think this is necessarily the best face for young people. And, you know, Erica Kirk, she's trying to hold this together. They have these disparate entities and so forth, so I fully understand this. But I think at some point they're going to have to figure out how to broom these people away. I have no problem with legitimate debate and discussion. What's not legitimate is people who lie about facts, people who lie about history, and people who are bigots and racists and Christian haters and Jew haters. That, to me, is a problem. And I won't platform people like that. I never have. You have some hosts out there, some guys, particularly the podcast types who need subscribers and eyes and all the rest of it. That's all they do. And then they pretend they're angry when they bring them on to yell at them. Well, what is it? In other words, let me put it to you this way. There's too many Jerry Springers out there, and the difference is Jerry Springer at least had some level of a moral code. But these people do not. So they've turned podcasting into worse than Jerry Springer. And you really can't do that in conservative talk radio. People aren't going to put up with it. The audience is very smart. The affiliates don't want anything to do with that, neither do I, as somebody who's done this for a little while. But, you know, intellectual pornography, it's not even intellectual, is not something that I think we want our kids listening to and our kids' listening to, and how it pollutes their minds and so forth. It rots their minds. And also this stuff, you know, how it's turned on America and so forth. I'm not into that. Kamala Harris is on with Jimmy Kimmel. She's a poor loser, and she's a loser. Emphasize the word loser. And these attacks on Trump are really, they're just nonstop, no matter what he does, whether it's to upgrade the White House and have a ballroom on the east part of the White House, something they desperately need and have needed for decades, and he has the guts to do it and to raise the private funds to do it. Or securing the border and trying to deport illegal immigrants, particularly criminals and would-be terrorists. He's attacked for that. He's attacked for trying to push the radical left ideology out of our bureaucracy, out of our schools, out of the private sector, those parts of the private sector that receive federal government money. And I could go on, and he's attacked for these things. Barack Obama was, he was naming battleships after all kinds of leftists and so forth, and carriers. And Donald Trump wants to rename the Kennedy Center, and you would have thought the sky is falling. Well, why can't he? Some people say he needs to focus on the big things. Well, you always focus on the big things, but Trump focuses on big and little things. And you know what's interesting? It reminds me of Rudy Giuliani as mayor of New York. He focused on the big things and the little things. The squeegee guys were thrown out of the streets because they were disrupting the quality of life. Those are little guys, little things, right? So the little things do affect people. So everything that's named shouldn't be of a Democrat or a leftist or something like that. And I have found Trump in so many respects, not in all, but in so many respects, to be more conservative than people who claim to be conservative. He's culturally very conservative. Culturally very conservative, in my view. So Kamala Harris is on with Jimmy Kimmel. Cut 3, Mr. Producer, go.
There is nothing normal about what we are experiencing. And I think it's really important for us to remember we cannot normalize this. And frankly,
I would just say, I don't care that she's a woman. I don't care that she's Indian and African American. None of that. She's an idiot. She's an idiot. I can't even stand listening to her. Well, let's listen to some of it. Go ahead.
We are clear-eyed about what is wrong and corrupt and callous and incompetent about this administration. We also must remember when we are talking about that, and the people of America deserve better.
What does that even mean? The people of America voted for him and not you. That's the truth. We're going to take a little bit of an early break, Mr. Producer. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
As a consumer, you can carry the success or failure of businesses in the palm of your hand. Their success can depend on your decision to spend money with them or their competitor. Well, my friends at Pure Talk would like to say thank you from the bottom of their hearts for choosing Pure Talk for your wireless needs. Because of you, they've had a record-breaking year. Because of your generosity through their Roundup for Charity program, they've been able to donate over $500,000 to America's Warrior Partnership, who stands on the front lines of helping to prevent veteran suicide. Your patronage has allowed Pure Talk to donate 1,000 hand-sewed Made in America flags to your fellow veterans. And when you choose Pure Talk as your wireless provider, you help Pure Talk support American jobs right here in our country. Like I said, as a consumer, you have the power to make or break companies. And with the money the big wireless guys throw around on advertising, you're inundated with offers everywhere you look. So from everyone in the Pure Talk family, thank you for your trust, and God bless you. Now, President of the United States, Venezuela is killing Americans. That's what it's doing. President's trying to do something about it. And he comes under all this grief. Here we have Gregory Meeks. We haven't heard from him in a long time, Democrat in New York. He's on CNN today. What's he doing? What's he say about the effort to save Americans? So many Americans dying from drugs being pushed by Venezuela. Cut 7, go.
What comes after? What is the plan? There's none of that. And do you come to Congress? Because Congress is the one that's responsible for determining when we go to war or not.
No, Congress is not. Congress doesn't make war. The president makes war. Congress can cut it off. Congress can defund it. But when you look at the actual Constitution and you actually read what was intended, not the efforts by Congress to seize power from the president, and that's what I'm talking about, the War Powers Act of 1973 and so forth, which no president has felt was constitutional, and serious constitutional scholars know is not constitutional, but then again, they're few and far between. It's not your job to make military decisions, and the most important one, war. That's simply not the case. And I've explained this before. The framers looked at the language. They originally said Congress would have the power to make war, and then they said, whoops, that's a mistake. They hit the brakes, and they said declare war. The president is the commander-in-chief. So what happens is, in the public arena, And they are repeated enough where people believe they're true, including the people repeating them. It's not true. Go ahead.
Your case as to why you want to do this, but I think that from his statements alone, it tells you this is about oil. He wants to take the oil in Venezuela, make some deals. So him, his family.
Where does he get this from, other than the far recesses of his very small mind? Where does he get that from? That he wants to take oil, and he later says, and enrich his family and his buddies. I mean, just so stupid, actually. And it's simply not true either. He's made it clear what he wants to do, and he means it, which is to save American lives. And that's very, very important. You know, the president gave a speech the other day, as you well know. We were listening to it. And I turned to my wife, I said, you know, I'm liking this speech. Maybe it didn't start out with a bang, but it ended with it. And when you look at the speech in its entirety, I like the speech. What was the purpose of the speech? He's laying out the things that he accomplished in his first year in office. It's an end-of-the-year speech. And I think it was smart for him to do that, because if he doesn't do it, who else is going to do it? The networks? MS Now? The Constipated News Now? Who's going to do it? Nobody. So he did it. And his audience is not intended to be the media. It's not intended to be his critics who are obsessed with attacking him. His audience was you. Reaching you, talking to you directly. So I happen to think it was excellent, and it was excellent that he did it. And to be truthful, I think he should do it more often. I don't mean every week. Every 3 or 4 months. Because it's the best way to communicate with the American people, as far as I'm concerned. Chuck Schumer on the floor of the Senate today. Complete buffoon. Cut 12, go.
Mr. President, last night, Donald Trump gave a speech about how supposedly great his first year has been. So,
well, if his first year wasn't great from our perspective, you and me, Mr. and Mrs. America, and certainly his perspective, then why do they keep attacking him? If he's a failure, if he's a loser, if he doesn't accomplish things, if he's not a success at the things he's promised, at the things he wants to accomplish, then they wouldn't be attacking him, would they, Mr. Producer? So they attack him. On the one hand, they say he's destroying the government. No, he's not. He's trying to bring it back to its original purpose. He's destroying the left-wing control over the government and the left-wing influence over the government. But he's not destroying the constitutional government. He's strengthening it. But my point is, if he was a loser, if he wasn't accomplishing things and doing things each and every day, they wouldn't be attacking him so much, would they? Go ahead.
Because there's really not much to say about how great Trump has been. For 18 months, for 18 minutes, the president
reading is fundamental, schmuck. Go ahead.
To convince Americans the sky is green, that trees can walk. He yelled at the camera.
I wonder who wrote this. It sounds like a third grade. You talk about a poor speed. Listen to this one. This is sophomoric. It's pathetic. Go ahead.
And said that things are...
Shut up, you idiot. I've had enough of you. Better look over your shoulder. AOC, Sandy, she might take you out. You never know. Sandy is unbelievable. So they don't like his speech. I liked his speech a lot. Here's one part that I liked in particular. Cut 14, Mr. Producer. Go.
Over the past 11 months, we have brought more positive change to Washington than any administration in American history. There has never been anything like it, and I think most would agree. I was elected in a landslide, winning the popular vote and all 7 swing states and everything else, with a mandate to take on a sick and corrupt system that really just took the wealth from people and crushed the dreams of the American people. For the last 4 years, the United States was ruled by politicians who fought only for insiders, illegal aliens, career criminals, corporate lobbyists, prisoners, terrorists, and above all, foreign nations, which took advantage of us at levels never seen before. They flooded your cities and towns with illegal aliens. They decimated your hard-earned savings. They indoctrinated your children with hate for America. They just released a level of violent felons that we had never seen to prey on innocent. They caused war. They caused mayhem. They caused a horrible situation all over the globe. But now...
And again, I thought the speech was actually quite good. The left, of course, and the media, predictable. The media aggregate little websites, predictable. We'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Look, it's not clear if this killer is in the warehouse or not. It's not clear to the media. It's not clear to me based on everything I'm reading. The police presence is still there. They know that he did switch plates potentially on a car. So this thing is still playing out. If we get any actual factual information in the next 54 minutes, you will be the first to know. I'm monitoring, in particular, one site that's always been very, very good. Very good. But in the meantime, we're going to have our friend Josh Hammer on the program after the first segment. He's a very sharp, young conservative. I think he's one of the leading lights of conservatism. He's taken on people like Megyn Kelly and others. You know, they attack everybody. They attack everybody. They really do. But that's not why I've invited him on. I invited him on because he's smarter than your average bear. And I like talking to him. And I think you will too. One of the things the president said last night that's not getting the attention it deserves is this $1,776 bonus he's going to give to our military personnel. And they certainly deserve it. Let's play that. Cut 17, go.
Because of tariffs, along with the just passed One Big Beautiful Bill, tonight I am also proud to announce that more than 1,450,000, think of this, 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call Warrior Dividend before Christmas, a Warrior Dividend. In honor of our nation's founding in 1776, we are sending every soldier $1,776.
You know, let's stop here. I want you to think about what this man's done. Excuse me, in a period of 10 days, he's helping the best he can our military personnel with this additional money. I'm sure he'd like to give 10 times that amount. He worked with Michael Dell, the billionaire computer magnate, and now other billionaires chipping in on these Trump accounts for young people to learn how to save and so forth. I mean, when you really think about what he's doing, he is supporting and pushing school choice. He's trying to make communities and neighborhoods safer. I mean, he's doing so many of these things, and they get no media attention. If there is media attention, it's fleeting. He's doing very, very important things that will have a legacy over time. Cut 18, Mr. Producer. Go.
Tonight, after 11 months, our border is secure. Inflation is stopped. Wages are up. Prices are down. Our nation is strong. America is respected. And our country is back, stronger than ever before. We're poised for an economic boom, the likes of which the world has never seen. Soon we will host the World Cup and the Olympics, both of which I got. But most importantly, we will celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. There could be no more fitting tribute to this epic milestone than to complete the comeback of America that began just 1 year ago. When the world looks at us next year, let them see a nation that is loyal to its citizens, faithful to its workers, confident to its identity, certain to its destiny, and the envy of the entire globe. We are respected again like we have never been respected before.
Sorry, now, of course they're going to hate this speech, right? It is a patriotic speech. It's a pro-American speech, and he's highlighting the things that he has done, which are so numerous. So, of course, the media are going to hate the speech and condemn him, right? Now he talks about the economy directly. Cut 15, Mr. Producer, go.
Here at home, we're bringing our economy back from the brink of ruin. The last administration and their allies in Congress looted our treasury for trillions of dollars, driving up prices and everything at levels never seen before. I am bringing those high prices down and bringing them down very fast. Let's look at the facts. Under the Biden administration, car prices rose 22% and in many states 30% or more. Gasoline rose 30 to 50%. Hotel rates rose 37%. Airfares rose 31%. Now under our leadership, they are all coming down and coming down fast. Democrat politicians also sent the cost of groceries soaring, but we are solving that too. The price of a Thanksgiving turkey was down 33% compared to the Biden last year. The price of eggs is down 82% since March, and everything else is falling rapidly. And it's not done yet, but boy, are we making progress. Nobody can believe what's going on.
And he's right, is he not? All right, I am watching a live stream. I want to salute our man, Tim. And they're at this building, the police and others, in Salem, New Hampshire. We're watching it from the outside. That's all I know. They haven't left. They're still there. So this guy's either still there or they're not sure if he's still there. But I think they breached that building somewhat. And they're looking. Still, I have no new information. Here's Trump on the economy last night. Go ahead.
Here at home, we're bringing our economy back from the brink of ruin. The last administration...
Oh, we just did that one. I'm sorry. I meant 16. Go.
Next year, you will also see the results of the largest tax cuts in American history that were really accomplished through our great, big, beautiful bill, perhaps the most sweeping legislation ever passed in Congress. We wrapped 12 different bills up into one beautiful bill. That includes no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. Under these cuts, many families will be saving between $11,000 and $20,000 a year, and next spring is projected to be the largest tax refund season of all time.
I want you to think about that bill passed despite the fact that what did he have, a 4 majority members in the House? And he was able to keep them together. Mike Johnson was able to keep them together. Scalise was able to keep them together. It's a major, major event when you accomplish something like that. It's not something to sneeze at, but they don't care, big deal and so forth and so on. He looked physically, and they're pulling this stuff, and I told you several weeks ago they were, maybe even several months. They're trying to make it look like, he might have early dementia, or physically, did you see his hand and stuff like that. So they're doing that to him, things they never would have even dreamt to do to Biden, of course. But they're doing it because they think they're clever. They're not clever. They're sinister. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, it's a pleasure to have my friend Josh Hammer on the program. He's got a great podcast, The Josh Hammer Show. Josh, how are you, my friend?
Mark, I'm doing wonderful, my friend. How are you doing? Happy Hanukkah to you, by the way.
And same to you. Now, Josh comes under attack more than he should. And I've concluded the only people who come under attack are the people who are effective. And they're also the people who attack fear. And Josh is whip smart and very well read on so many topics. First of all, how do you like doing a podcast? And secondly, why do you think you're being targeted by some of these obnoxious people?
You know, Mark, I started the show not really knowing what I was doing a few years ago now, and we've built up to a daily video show, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I didn't get a single minute of media training in my entire life. All of it is kind of just baptism by fire, fly by the seat of my pants. I thoroughly enjoy it. You know, we have some radio affiliates for the show as well, and it's just great fun, and I just love speaking my mind, Mark. You know, like you, I'm a lawyer by training. I worked at a big law firm. I did private equity transactions, and you know, when I left that world to get into the world that you and I are both currently in, I said to myself, Mark, that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it for the right reasons. And I'm going to do it to call balls and strikes. I'm going to do it to speak my darn mind, in other words. I'm not going to pull punches. I'm not going to mince words. And let everything drop where it does from there. And that's what I do day in and day out. And it's just been a lot of fun, and God willing, it'll go a lot further from here. Now as to your latter question as to why I find myself, much like you, our mutual friend Ben Shapiro and others, why I find myself now in the crossfire. Look, on the one hand, I think it escalated after Charlie Kirk's assassination at least for certain individuals like Candace Owens, because I am a Jew. I wrote a book on the Jews in Western civilization. I wear a kippah, a yarmulke, and I'm a pretty public identifiable Jew. And for people like Candace Owens, I think it complicated their narrative, Mark, that Charlie had someone like me that he was relying upon for advice as a friend in his inner circle and so forth. But it's really escalated quite a bit in recent months. I've taken a lot of incoming fire, not just from Candace Owens, but most recently even from Megyn Kelly and others. And I have to conclude, Mark, that means I'm doing a good job. I think it means that I'm speaking truth, and that a lot of people, frankly, are afraid of the truth because they have other ambitions. There are a lot of folks in our space, in our line of work, Mark, I think, who care not about the truth. They care about getting clicks and attention. It's me. It's what can I do to grab the most headlines and end up on the front page of whatever website or whatever there. But that's not what I'm about. That's not what you're about. And that's why I'm proud to call you a friend.
And likewise, it's almost like podcast pornography, isn't it? And it gets worse and worse and worse. And these people, their statements become completely irrational, hateful, bigoted. I don't know where this ends. I think it ends when the audience goes away. And I think eventually the audience will shrink, don't you?
So I think that part of this is something of a phase. A lot of these folks have very short attention spans. And they tend to move on from one phase to the next. In fact, a lot of this garbage on the so-called right that we're now seeing, it frankly is the mirror image of a lot of the left. And you look at a lot of the left's ideological fetishes, the social movements that they've attached themselves to for the past decade or so. Well, first it was the same-sex marriage fight. That was the Love Equals Love campaign, all of that. That ultimately culminated in the Obergefell case of the Supreme Court. They won that fight in 2015. Then they moved on to the Me Too movement. That was the Women's March. That was the Harvey Weinstein affair. And that was ultimately culminating really in the attempt to derail the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation in September 2018. Then they moved on to the summer of 2020, and it was COVID-19. It was the summer of Black Lives Matter, and they went to the whole Black Lives Matter phase. Then October 7th happened, and it was the Hamas protests and all the keffiyeh-clad Islamist crazies. So I think that this bizarro world mirror image on the so-called right, and again, I emphasize so-called right because these folks, as you know better than anyone, don't seem to actually be on the right in any meaningful sense of the term. And one of the things they share with the left is I think they share this fixation where they just hopscotch from one thing to the other. So I think that this particularly noxious obsession that they currently have above all, really, with the Jews, with the Jewish people, with Israel, with others as well. There's a lot of loathsome anti-Indian racism out there currently in these circles as well. But above all, it really does seem to be about the Jews. I do think that they will lose their attention span for this sooner rather than later and move on. I couldn't tell you what to, but I think they probably will move on to something else.
Now, were you a different Hanukkah party than I, but you heard the president. He was remarkable, wasn't he? He was very explicit. He didn't pull any punches in his support. Well, first of all, he notices this anti-Semitism. He's sharp as can be. He repudiated it, and I know he is repulsed by it. Isn't that what you heard?
Oh, it's absolutely what I heard. So, first of all, Mark, I'm sorry to miss you, but I believe, at the earlier of the two White House Hanukkah party receptions. I was actually also at the vice president's reception the night before. But at the White House on Tuesday afternoon, the president was in rare form. And he was in rare form. It was actually quite a different Donald Trump than what the nation saw on the nationally televised address last night. The president last night was what was animated, and he was in full kind of political campaign mode. He was really trying to make his points. The president that I saw at the White House wasn't really in campaign mode necessarily. He was really relaxed. He was really just happy. A lot of smiling and joking. He got into this one extended dialogue with this 100-year-old Holocaust survivor. It was really kind of cute and unscripted and spontaneous. And he invited some of his Jewish staffers on stage to light the menorah. My good longtime friend Will Scharf, the current staff secretary of the White House, was asked to light the menorah. And then Will lights the menorah for I guess it was the third night of Hanukkah. And after that, President Trump says, "Will, you're really Jewish. I didn't know you were that Jewish." And the whole room just burst out laughing. I mean, it was just joy. It was, as we say in Hebrew, it was simcha. It was pure, unmitigated joy and happiness. And look, the president is an unmitigated friend of the Jewish people of the state of Israel. I'm not sure what else he could possibly do to demonstrate that, but his love of a people that is not his own, the Jewish people, is just extraordinary. And I think that what he sees in the Jews is what a lot of great men throughout history have seen in the Jews, which is essentially what I wrote in my book, Israel and Civilization, which is that he sees the Jews as a bellwether, as that which way the Jews go, that which way civilization goes. And I think Donald Trump intuits that in his bones. He intuits that in his kishkas, I guess, as we would say in Yiddish, and he acts on it perhaps moreover as well.
And it's interesting. Churchill felt the same way. Do you think that's why Churchill comes under attack by these what I call these neo-fascists and their ilk? Because Churchill was a great, great man.
You know, Mark, they seem to have all of the best leaders in their crosshairs. These folks hate Winston Churchill. They hate Abraham Lincoln, too, by the way. A lot of them hate Abraham Lincoln. Like, I debated this clown, Dave Smith, this libertarian so-called
disaster.
Comedian. A total disaster. I debated him twice, of course. I mean, he despises Abraham Lincoln. A lot of these kind of lost cause, paleo-conservative, paleo-libertarians, they despise Abraham Lincoln. So they despise Lincoln. They despise Churchill, and I think a more simple-minded person might just say, "Well, whose side are you on? I mean, if you're condemning Lincoln, are you on the side of the Confederacy? If you're condemning Churchill, are you on the side of the Nazis? God forbid." I think people would be tremendously forgiven for asking these kind of very rudimentary questions. I mean, Winston Churchill is one of the greatest heroes, not just the past century. I would say the past millennium. Absolutely over the past millennium. And you're right. He was deeply fond of the Jewish people. In fact, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think the only time that he published a writing that was about the Bible, I could be wrong with this, so don't quote me, but I think the only time that he ever published a writing on the Bible, biblical commentary, was he wrote a whole beautiful essay praising the leadership ability of Moses in the Torah itself. And I think you're right. I think that's what they see in Churchill, and they hate him for it, Mark.
That's Josh Hammer. The Josh Hammer Show is a great podcast. Josh, hold on, please, if you will. We're going to come right back after the break. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now. 1-877-381-3811.
Talking to Josh Hammer, The Josh Hammer Show. Great podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Josh, now you were friends with Charlie Kirk, and you had one of the last conversations or communications with him, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So, Mark, I first got to know Charlie when I took over the job of op-ed editor at Newsweek, which is what I was initially hired there to do. And Charlie was one of our conservative columnists, so I got to know him and his executive producer, Andrew Colvin, through his columns. And we became friendly, and I've spoken at a few of the Turning Point conferences over the past few years or so. And it was really over the final, I would say, year and a half-ish of his life that we started to get closer. And he eventually started this group chat, and humorously, Mark, this group chat has become the source of international conspiracy, let's call it, after a leak of the chat to one Candace Owens. But in any event, he started this chat, and we there were only probably 8 or 9 of us in there, a mix of Jews and Christians alike. And we used this chat to kind of hash out on a daily basis how to heal these wounds that have broken out when it comes to a lot of the same folks that you and I were just talking about before the break, who are trying to drive a stake, try to drive a wedge through this ecumenical biblical alliance, this Jewish-Christian alliance that founded Western civilization and that alone can preserve it and save it. So we were talking on essentially a daily basis about this, about how to make sure this coalition, this alliance endures from one generation to the next. And it's true that I spoke with him less than 24 hours before he tragically was killed. We had a Zoom call, I believe was at 6 p.m. Eastern time on that Tuesday, September 9th. So literally by definition, just under 24 hours before he was killed. And it was a call with me, my friend Rabbi Pesach Walicki, who is a rabbi based in Jerusalem. And there were a couple of Turning Point producers, one Christian pastor, and Charlie. And that was basically the whole Zoom call. Charlie organized the call himself. And he did this call because he knew that he was going to begin what was supposed to be a sweeping national campus tour the following day. Of course, the Utah Valley event, which proved fatally and tragically to be his last, that was supposed to be just the first of many events. So he wanted to do this Zoom call to essentially hash out what was the best possible messaging to defend the Jewish people, to defend Israel, to defend Jewish-Israel relations, to defend Jewish-Christian relations. He wanted to discuss all of this before he engaged on this campus tour. So that's one of the reasons, Mark, why I've been pushing back as hard as I have on all of the frauds and grifters and charlatans and hacks and Islamist sympathizers and mollycoddlers, all of these folks who have been trying to say, oh, Charlie Kirk was abandoning Israel. Oh, Charlie Kirk was abandoning Jews. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. No one who's abandoning the Jews or Israel would have me and Rabbi Pesach Walicki approved to be one of his final conversations. It makes no sense. It makes no sense whatsoever. And by the way, his widow, Erica, just confirmed that yet again in her interview with Barry Weiss of CBS News over the past weekend, where Erica says very clearly, and there's no hesitation whatsoever, she said that Charlie said over and over again that Jew hate is brain rot, and don't let your brain rot. And apparently Erica was very involved in making sure that this current Turning Point conference that just started today out in Phoenix, Arizona, apparently she was involved in making sure that there was a nice Shabbat dinner for all the Jewish attendees there. So it's all garbage. It's all deliberate disinformation. It's part of what I call a brain rot operation, because to get us back to our friend Mr. Katarlson and Candace Owens and some of these others, one of the things they're trying to do, Mark, in my judgment, is they're trying to deliberately rot your brain, because they think that if you are stupider, then they will gain market share. It's a bit of a self-aggrandizing market share grab kind of play. And again, that's not how I roll. I'm in this business because I care about principle. I care about the truth. I care about America, Western civilization. I care about the Bible, etc. I know you do too, and that's what makes you and I different from folks like them.
But how much more radicalized and imbecilic, let's be honest, can they get? I mean, there's a point at which you're such a complete moron. I guess it depends on the audience. If the audience starts to shrink, maybe they'll find another way, right?
So it's hard to say. Now, part of this is playing out quite literally in real time. So, Mark, just 10, 15 minutes before I hopped on the air with you, I was watching our buddy Ben Shapiro's speech out at AmFest, the Turning Point speech that just happened. And Ben brought the house down. It was, in my judgment, probably one of his all-time greatest speeches. And he got resounding applause throughout it as he was calling out people by name. In fact, I was just skimming my social media feed, and I saw that there's a Turning Point USA staffer by the name of Alex Clark. She actually hosts a show for Turning Point. She said that Ben's speech was the greatest speech in the entire history of AmFest, of the Turning Point Conference out in Phoenix. So, between that, Mark, I saw one of Charlie's other producers, a guy by the name of Blake Neff, who's formerly a producer on Tucker Carlson's Fox News show. Blake's been with Charlie for a few years now. Blake actually had an interesting tweet on Thanksgiving Day of all days, calling out Tucker for his bizarre World War II revisionism. Tucker was essentially on Piers Morgan's show, saying that Hitler was just an anti-communist. So that's really what he cared about, was fighting communism. And his own former producer, Blake, who's on Charlie's show now, said, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? How many more Jews, how many more Catholic Poles, priests, etc., did Hitler have to slaughter to convince you that he was not just out to fight the commies, not just fight the pinko radical commies? So, I think that we've actually reached something of an inflection point. I think we actually, maybe I'm a little optimistic on this. I might be too optimistic, but I feel like we're already past the lowest point. Erica Kirk took a jab actually at Candace Owens as well tonight in her opening speech. That was really nice to see as well. I think that team sanity is starting to punch back, and it's starting to punch back with fervor. And I'm just really excited to be a very small part of that effort to punch back.
Well, you've done a great job, and you did a great job when it was getting kind of lonely out there, wasn't it, Josh? And but I think when people saw that you could push back and survive the next day, people started to say, I've got to address this. And as crazier that they got, I think more and more people said, well, wait a minute, this has to be addressed. And I think you're right. I think they're going to get crazier and crazier, and more people are going to stand up to this. And I see more and more people standing up to this. You do too, right? That's your point.
I absolutely do. And, a lot of folks surprise me. Look, there are any number of folks, Mark, who have been absolute lions throughout this entire thing. People like Dana Lash, Dinesh D'Souza, Senator Ted Cruz, Seth Dillon, the Babylon Bee. There's a number of people who have just been absolute lions. But I increasingly see folks just call out individuals who I didn't expect to call out. So, not to get too in the weeds, but there's a very popular MAGA account on X, formerly known as Twitter, a guy who tweets under the pseudonym Cat Turd. And Cat Turd, who has a massive following, especially among the MAGA faithful, has been really calling out Megyn Kelly hard, really hard over the past few weeks, because Megyn continues to equivocate when it comes to Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. And Cat Turd is not having any of that. He wants Megyn to call out Candace Owens clearly by name. So, again, I see all these data points, and on the one hand, they're just one-off data points, but on the other hand, in the aggregate, it starts to add up. And I really do think that our side, the side that has not lost their darn minds, is starting to really build some momentum here. And God willing, it's going to continue for a little while, because, right now, the American people still don't say that the economy is in the best shape. We're going to have to get that economy, revving and roaring again for Republicans to do well at the ballot box next fall in 2026. And one thing I know that can derail that before it even starts is if the Nick Fuentes, Royper, this neo-Nazi, this anti-Western civilizational bullcrap, if this is continually flirted with, that's going to doom Republicans' chances before it even gets started.
Yeah, I agree with that. Josh, keep up the great job. You're doing wonderful, wonderful work. The Josh Hammer Show, a great podcast. I strongly recommend you check it out. Josh, take care, and God bless, and happy rest of Hanukkah for you.
Mark, God bless you, my friend, and happy Hanukkah. You're a Maccabee and a lion. Thank you for all that you do.
Well, you're very kind. Likewise. You take care of yourself. I really have grown to like that young man. He really is good. What did you say, Rich? You told me I needed to do something, which I do. What was it? I don't remember. Oh, okay. Well, we have a problem. I can't find that right now. So why don't we take an early break, and then I will find it. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
much time do we have, Mr. Producer? All right, we got time for some people here. Let's go to We the People. Let's go to Tony, Montreal, Canada, XM Satellite, one of the greatest Jew-hating places on the face of the earth. I'm just saying, Tony, just saying. Go ahead.
Well, you might want to call me the Haganah of the North because I definitely are not in that ilk. I'll just tell you one thing. When you come to Islamofascism, you're not going to get more of an opponent to the militant Islamic movement, both in England, Canada, the United States, and around the world. Bondi, Munich, Entebbe, etc. You have the Seattle attempt. You have the Toronto 14. These are all generated by what I call Islamofascists or Islamists that are militant Sharia, misogynistic, fundamental cultists, pushing an intimidation on their opponents by labeling Christians and Jews and even certain Muslim groups as infidels, where they say they can maim, kill, burn, and destroy and overtake. So why are we asleep, Mark? You're the only one that I know in North America that talks about the absolute threat that Islamofascism is generating in your country, in our country, against Jewish people, against Christian people, against anybody that opposes them. They believe that their religion is the dominant force in the future. That is why they've been excluded out of multiple countries such as China and Russia, Hungary, Poland, etc. But we are allowing them to use the Constitution as if the Constitution of the United States is a suicide pact. It is not. Mm-hmm. They are advocating for violence against targeted groups. That to me is hate speech, and they should be stopped. If you're going to use your religion as a cult and as a propagandist political movement, then we must treat it as an incipient Trojan horse that is trying to destroy the way of life, like your expert said. The Jewish and the Christian faith produced the Enlightenment, which changed the world, and we should be aware of that. And I want to ask you, Mark, did you hear anybody call out Bondi from the hierarchy of the Islamic movement? Did you hear any imam call them out? Okay, I didn't hear anything. Okay, and how many Christians have been eliminated in genocide in Africa and Nigeria? Only
hundreds and hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands. 1,800 churches burned to the ground. We talk about Syria, almost 300,000 Christians killed. And they're killing Muslims also, who they consider infidels because they don't want to apply Sharia law. Listen, your producer said, Tony, do you want to speak about this? I could speak about Brown, and I could speak about the incompetence of Brown University. I can also talk about the people in Minneapolis.
Well, do they have talk radio in Canada?
No, we don't. That's why I'm listening to you.
Yeah, but they probably arrest you. Probably too offensive. It's amazing. Canada, Britain, France, what's going on? Australia. It's a disgrace. Tony, don't be a stranger. Call again. That was a fantastic call. God bless you, my friend. Let's go to Diane. Rochester, New York, the great WHAM. Go right ahead, please.
Yes, Mark, your excellent guest, Josh Hammer, okay? I'm simply going to hammer home the point, or very quickly, 2 or 3. The previous caller, this is a plan. These people establishing their districts and their territories where no police are allowed, they will secede from the state. They will secede from our country. We will become as fractured and doomed as the European continent. Thank you, because of Kumbaya. I also believe that, to reiterate, let me just say, great men, Churchill, Lincoln, George Washington, Charlie Kirk, these people who are against them, it's all about envy. Why? Because they do not compare. They cannot achieve such a high self-imposed standard. It's like today, math is racist. No, you are lazy and you lack the discipline, and a lot of it is with parents.
All right, my friend, another excellent call. I want to thank you all. You're all very great patriots for the West, for sure. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine, the men and women in Israel, and you, the American people, red-blooded Americans. God bless you, each and every one of you, and I'll see you tomorrow, okay? Be well.